Alright, what's good everyone? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to be doing an ultimate comparison between the iPad Pro M4 11-inch versus the Z Fold 6. So let's get into it. So first things first, let's just start with the specs. Z Fold 6, I am rocking the 1TB version. It has 12 gigs of RAM. The iPad Pro has 1TB as well. I believe it has 16 gigs of RAM. And yeah, so that's what we're talking about in terms of the specs. And then the iPad Pro obviously has the M4 chip. Z Fold 6 has the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 chip. They compare in some ways, but in a lot of ways, the iPad is going to be more powerful. However, though, as you're going to see later on in this video, more power doesn't necessarily equal more software features. And then going further with the specs, the Z Fold 6 has two screens that are 120 Hertz, very bright with 2600 nits, and then has, really good cameras on the back. One thing that I like this year is that the iPad Pro has the selfie camera in the middle this year, so that's good for Zoom calls, meetings, and stuff like that. It's really nice. Obviously, the camera's at the back. It's an okay camera. It's nothing amazing. It's definitely can't compare to the Z Fold 6 or other smartphone cameras. So one thing that is cool about the CPU and GPU in the iPad Pro is that it actually has a media engine. There's a specific ProRes encode and decode engine. So this is really good for video editing, basically dealing with different types of video files. The iPad Pro is very, very thin this year. This is ridiculously thin. When we look at the USB-C port, it is almost there. The Z Fold 6 is also very thin, and it's honestly, they're very close. It's just right there. The iPad Pro might be slightly thinner, but it's very comparable in terms of the thinness when the Fold 6 is opened, obviously. Better speakers for sure on the iPad Pro, 2 at the bottom, and then we got 2 at the top, so stereo speaker. Volume control buttons, we got them at the top right here. This is where you charge your new Apple Pencil, because the old Apple Pencil doesn't work on this for some reason. And then this new basic Apple Pencil charges with a USB-C port, and it doesn't charge when connected to the device, which is also very silly in my opinion. Then at the top, you got the power button, and there is no fingerprint sensor reader on this, so you have to use Face Unlock to unlock this device very quickly with biometrics. Whereas the Z Fold 6 supports Face Unlock, and then it also has fingerprint reader on the side, so that's also really nice. And if you're curious about the weight, so here's the scale. This is the iPad Pro, and it is 445 grams. And then the Z Fold 6 is around 255 grams opened up. Z Fold 6 might be slightly heavier though, because it has a glass screen protector, which will add, a couple grams. The on-paper weight for the Z Fold 6 is 239 grams. So the Z Fold 6 is basically half the weight of the iPad Pro, so you got to consider that if you're thinking about, the weight and stuff like that. The Z Fold 6 also features a brighter screen up to 2600 nits of peak brightness, whereas the iPad Pro is at 1000 nits of peak brightness and 1600 nits of peak brightness when it comes to HDR content. But yeah, so that is the hardware stuff. So now let's get into the software. Let's get into actually using these devices. Both of them have home screens. You can have different pages. So how editing works on both of these devices is on the iPad, you tap and hold, and you can enter editing mode. So you have options before that, but you can drag to enter editing mode. Then you can tap multiple apps to move many of them at the same time. So that is a nice addition. That wasn't always the case on the iPads and iPhones. So it's cool that you can move multiple apps at a time. Then you can also, add or delete widgets. You have a bunch of different widgets based on the apps that you have installed on your iPad. And you can also create widget stacks, which is something that the Z Fold 6 has access to as well. And then right now on iPad OS, you cannot put the apps wherever you want. I can put the widgets anywhere, but if I try to move, this folder to the bottom, it's not going to work. If I try to grab an app from this side, move it down here, it doesn't work. They snap to the top. That is something that will change eventually. I think it's coming in the next iOS and iPadOS update, but at the moment you cannot move them wherever you want. Whereas on the Z Fold 6, you can do that, which I'll show you just now. And yeah, that's basically home screen editing. On the iPad, you do have this widget little side right here where you can add different widgets for a quick view if you want to. Then you have your taskbar. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 apps in here by default. Then you can add 14 apps in the taskbar and then 3 recent apps, and then you have access to all your apps. So that is pretty cool. That's a really good amount. Then you can obviously create folders if you want to in the taskbar. So that's basically your home screen mechanics on the iPad. Now with the Z Fold 6, basically you can have your layout to almost any way you want. On the iPad, I forgot to mention with the widgets, you can't resize them however you want, whenever you want. You have to, when you're selecting your widget, you have to go to the specific sizes to add them to your home screen. You can't just resize them. But one big difference with Android and on the Z Fold 6 specifically is that you can resize the widgets very easily like this. this. So that's really nice. Some widgets don't support resizing or like all sizes, so you got to keep that in mind, but most of them you can resize them and you can kind of create your home screen layout however you want, which is like really cool. Like that's part of the customization that I wish iPads and iPhones had as well. So yeah, there's resizing. You can also move multiple apps just like you could on the iPad, but this time you can select them rather than like tapping and holding and then selecting with your other hand or other finger. You can select them and then move them like this. And then both of them offer folders on your home screen, but on the Z Fold 6, you can customize the color of the folder. So I can make it like blue like this. So the background of the folder will be blue. I can make it any color. As you can see, you have like the whole swatch and spectrum layout. And you can literally enter, different colors for different palettes and stuff like that. And then you can also make the opacity 0 of the color. So then it's transparent like this. So my folders on my Z Fold 6 are transparent to fit my theme. Going further into customization, the iPad does not have access to, custom icons and stuff like that. I think the next version of iOS is going to add dark mode icons or something like that, and maybe a little bit more customization, but at the moment you can't really customize your icons like how you can on your Z Fold 6. And then now let's get into editing it. So you can tap and hold just like how you can tap and hold on this one to start editing, but this gives you like a zoomed out preview of all the pages. You can literally delete a page instantly if you don't want that page, whereas on the iPad you have to go one by one and delete everything. You can't just delete a page on the iPad, so it's a lot slower and less intuitive. But yeah, you can delete a page, you can move pages, like change the order of them, which is pretty cool. And also you can change which page is the home page. So for example, this is the first page in order right now, but it's not the home page. This one is, but I can turn this one into the home page if I want to by tapping the little home icon. But I'm going to move this back so I don't mess with my order. Then at the bottom, you got wallpaper and style, themes, widgets, and settings. So you can customize the home screen settings. So, you can make the grid bigger or smaller, however you want it. You can customize the folder grid to be bigger or smaller, customize the home screen layout. So you can have apps on your home screen only, or you can have apps in the home screen and the app drawer, which I'll talk about later. You can make cover screen mirroring or not. And so that's pretty cool because obviously the Z Fold 6 is a foldable phone. So you're going to use it in two different ways, closed up like a regular phone or inside like a tablet. And so this is the layout on the outside screen. There's only one page here. I got a different widget layout and stuff like that, different folders. And then when I open it up, it's a completely different layout because I use these two screens differently. So that's pretty cool. And then the widget stacks are different. They work kind of essentially the same, but they swipe in different directions. And widgets in general are just more functional on Android. Like I can literally scroll through my my emails here. I can interact with the widgets and play stuff without actually going into the app. Whereas on iOS and iPadOS, it doesn't exactly work like that. I think they're kind of slowly implementing those kind of features, but at the moment it's still far behind Android in terms of like just quickly interacting with your widgets. So that's something to note as well. Like I can literally scroll through them. I can complete a reminder or go into it. I can add a new reminder, very quickly. So I can complete it without going to the app and then it's gone. So that's pretty sick. Then I can also change which reminders are being shown here. And yeah, like I said earlier, the iPad does not feature resizing your widgets, but on Android and the Z Fold 6 right now, you can literally resize your widget however you want, whenever you want. You don't have to like go into the widget selection screen, which I'll go into right now, and choose that specific widget size. But a lot of apps do have different layouts. So for example, this is Google Calendar. It has one where it shows the whole calendar and then also one where it shows the schedule. So you do have different layouts for a lot of different apps, but it's not necessarily size, and each layout will have different sizing mechanics. So yeah, that's the home screen mechanics for both these devices. And then you have the taskbar. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 apps on my taskbar. That is the max right now. So yeah, 13 apps seems like the max, and then you can have up to 4 recent apps shown on this side. And then you also have access to bringing up all your apps on your phone as well. So it's pretty comparable to what the iPad can do in terms of the taskbar. But on the Z Fold 6, you can customize how your taskbar works. So for example, you can tap and hold and your taskbar will disappear when you're in an app, but then you can tap and hold to bring it back and it's just always there when you're in the app. And then you can also set it so that when you're in split screen, so for example, I go into a quick split screen, now the taskbar is gone and split screen takes up the whole screen, the whole display of the phone. And then when it's like this, you can swipe up and it will bring up your taskbar, and then you can, use it accordingly. Like you can drag and drop into float a window, or you can drag and drop into split screen for triple split screen, or to take over another app, or you can just tap to go to that app instead very quickly. But you can also customize that functionality. So if you don't want that to happen, like the taskbar disappearing, I think by default, the taskbar just stays there and you can do the tap and hold to make it disappear. So in terms of flexibility, the taskbar on the Z Fold 6 is just more flexible and yeah, allows for more options. All right, so that was the home screen mechanics and I guess the taskbar. So now let's get into like gestures. So basic gestures, swipe and hold to access your recent apps. So very simple. Then you can open an app. Of course. Then you swipe once to go back to your home screen. Then swipe from the top for your notifications. iPad OS and iOS, you have swipe from the top right to access your control panel. Whereas with the Z Fold 6, you swipe down twice and you have your, your quick toggles / control panel type stuff. However, in One UI, there's so many different ways to get into these kind of controls. So for example, I can set it so that one swipe will bring me into here instantly, or I can set it so that half of the screen will allow me to get into this one, and then half of the screen will just open up the notifications shade like normal. Then I also have this right here, this quick toggle mini menu where I swipe and hold down from the sides. It will bring up this and I can access many things that will be in the quick toggle menu. Like for example, I can adjust my brightness, my volume, plays, skip whatever is playing, turn up and down my volume with, these buttons, turn on my hotspot, my Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, data, auto rotate. I can turn on the flashlight. Like there's so many different options you can add and choose to put here. It's not just these things. So that's just one of the examples of One UI being more flexible and customizable. So instead of doing this, I can just go like this, regardless of where I am. And it doesn't take over the whole screen. As you see right here, it blurs out the background and takes it over. And then going further into gestures and basic navigation on these two devices. With a small swipe, you can bring up your taskbar. And on the iPad, if you just tap it, you'll go to the app. You can drag that app into multitasking. So it can be split screen, or in this case, I have it set to stage manager, but I'll go back to split screen just to show you that functionality. Swipe up, then you can drag and drop another app into split screen. Then in split screen, you can resize them to different increments. It's not like as much as you have on the Samsung devices. So you can only have, there's only really two sizes for resizing your split screen. You got this view, and then you got both of them the same size, and then the other app into the smaller view. So only like 2 or 3 options really. If you tap it, nothing happens. You can only drag and resize them. And then with the Z Fold 6, you have a bunch of different gestures, like a crazy amount compared to the iPad. So if you swipe from the top right, you can enter floating windows very quickly with that specific app that you have, and you can resize it very easily. And then if you swipe 2 fingers from the bottom, you can enter a top and bottom split screen very quickly and easily. And then you can do the same thing if you swipe from the left side, you'll open the app on the left side. Same thing if you swipe from the right side, you'll open the app on the right side. So very quick and easy gestures that you can use on the Z Fold 6. And then on iPad OS, there is no back swipe gesture. So like a lot of apps have a back swipe kind of functionality. So let's say I'm in a page, I can swipe from the left side and it will kind of be a back swipe, but I can't really do that same thing on the right side of the screen. So like, let's say I'm in settings, I can't back swipe out of this, But on Android, even if it's like, this is a 2-page layout exactly like the iPad, even if it's that kind of layout, I can still back swipe and it will go back to whatever I was previously on. So I'm here, back swipe, So on Android and One UI, you can literally just swipe to go back, swipe to go back, swipe to go back. And to take it even further, I customized mine in my Z Fold 6 in GoodLock, and my swipes can do different things depending on how I swipe. So normal back swipe, swipe and hold, it will bring up a list of apps. So most recent apps and other apps that it recommends, and I can open those in split screen or pop-up view or just normally. So it's a very quick way to just, go into another app that I might want to go into. Then if I swipe and hold up, I turn it into a quick split screen, which is sick. Swipe and hold down, I showed you this quick toggle menu. And you could customize the quick swipes with different directions as well, but I just like all the quick swipes to be a back swipe, just like normal. And then some other gestures, you have like tapping on the back of the phone to open different apps. You got your pinch gestures to zoom in and out of things. You can do that on the iPad as well. But some gestures that the Z Fold 6 doesn't have that the iPad has is you can use your 5 fingers to close the app quickly. So if you do it quick, it will close the app. If you do it and hold, then it will show you all your tabs open in Safari. So it's specifically in Safari. But if you close and hold, then it will show you all your recent apps in a different app. And then on both of these devices, you can swipe from the bottom to quickly switch to your apps that were open recently. So I like that feature. I've always used that even on iPhone. And yeah, switching back and forth by swiping at the bottom. It's really nice and easy. On iOS, you have your navigational bar. It will always be there, slightly grayed out when you're not using it. On One UI, the bar is usually there, but I turned it off so that mine is just completely transparent. So there's nothing that pops up when I'm doing my gestures, and then there's no navigational bars. If I make the taskbar disappear, it's just all screen, and it's just really nice. Go into split screen, and it's all screen real estate, edge to edge being used in split screen. Just super nice. So that's how navigation and gestures work. In terms of notifications, iOS and iPad OS are going to be different from Android, so it's going to be organized slightly different. Personally, I like how Android does it. It just works for me. I'm not going to get into this too much because you're using it's a tablet comparison, so I know people don't really focus on notifications that much on tablets. So I'm just gonna move on to files. So file management and the files app. So if I go into the files app here and then the files app on my Z Fold 6. So right off the bat, it's a pretty similar layout. So Z Fold 6 is showing you, how much storage is already being used on your phone without even like doing anything. It's just there. Then you can expand it to see all your folders on your phone. You could also have a tab for most recent apps, and it will show you like newly added ones in like a picture view type of thing. Then you got tabs for like specific kinds of files. So images, videos, audio files, documents, downloads, installation files. And you got your trash, and you can manage your storage and like delete things that you're not using and stuff like that. Review old files. It will give you different advice to clean up your phone storage and make sure you're not wasting your space on things that you don't need. Then at the top, you can make that menu smaller, and then you can drag with your finger to expand it if you want. Then you got your settings. So you can sign into your OneDrive or your Google Drive, so you have access to those things quickly in the Files app as well. And then you got allow mobile data usage for like using the cloud storage and stuff like that. And you can show hidden system files for like if you're somebody who tinkers a lot. That's pretty cool. Show cloud files in categories. And then you also have edit the menu layouts, so you can have different things on top. And then you can also choose to show your OneDrive or your Google Drive or your network storage in the quick menu. And you got permissions, customization service, then about my files, so it's about the app. You can see the license. When you click one of the things on the side, it will show you obviously the apps in that location or in that assortment, and you can basically go through them. So this is the internal storage, like all the files on the phone, and it will show you all the folders, and you can just go through them and you can enter each folder. You can favorite a folder, and then it will show you that down here. So that's really nice as well. Then you can also search. Then when you're in a folder, it will show you like the path. So like, let's say I go into 2 folders, then it shows me the path, so I can go back to Android. That was the last place I was in. You can also organize it by dates, by name, by type, by size. You can put the biggest at the top or the smallest at the top. Change the view, so you can have a detailed list where it shows you more information. You can have a list. I think detailed and lists are kind of the same. Then you can have a grid where it's just like a smaller view of an icon. Then you got edit, so you can select basically everything and move them, copy them, delete them. And there's more stuff like compress, check the details, copy to a clipboard, move to secure folder. So you got a lot of options in terms of like moving stuff around. Then you can enter that same mode by tapping and holding on a folder. And then you can also tap and hold and then drag down to select multiple things very quickly. And then you can take it further, and you can actually tap and hold to drag into another folder or somewhere on the side. So for example, I have this view open up. I can drop something into another folder right here pretty quickly and easily. So that's pretty nice. So I can go into DCM, I can go to documents, project files, and drop this right here. But when you tap and hold and drag something, it creates a copy of that thing. So it doesn't actually move the original file. It will just copy it to wherever you want to put that. If you actually want to move something like in its entirety and not just copy it, then you select it, then you press move, and then this will pop up and you can choose where you want to move it. So if you have an external drive, it will show up here as well, and you can move it there or wherever you want on your phone. From this little menu, you can also create a folder, which is really nice. You can also change how it looks here, so it's easier for you to find stuff, I guess. And then in the trash, you can edit and select all things and delete them. You can tap and select and do the same thing. And that's basically it. That's how the Files app works here. Let's say you have a video in your Files app, you can open that in a separate window, or you can even open the Files app itself into a separate window. So let's say, I'm gonna bring up the taskbar again, and then I'll drag the Files app right here, and then boom. Now I have the Files app in 2 instances. So 2 separate windows for the same Files app. And what's cool is that you can actually drag. So let's say I'm in a folder right here, and I'm in another folder on the other side. I can drag a file across the 2 windows and drop it in the other folder. Like, that is super sick to me. That's just like PC level type of stuff. It's really cool. And I think you can have even 3, different instances. I might even be unlimited, to be honest. Boom, now I got a floating window. So I can have like 4 or more different folders open at the same time, and I can move files back and forth between them. I think that's pretty cool. And you can use the S Pen for more precision. Say I want to move this one right here to this folder, then I can do that. Or here. Really, really, really cool intuitive interface right here that Samsung has. So yeah, that's basically the Files app and how it works. So now let's go to the iPad. All right, so on the iPad, you have your basics. So recents, you got your shared folders. So if you're sharing with anyone else, iCloud Drive on my iPad, delete, recently deleted, and you can expand or close things. You can add different folders to your favorites as well, just like how you could on here. Then you also have tags. I really like this feature. I wish that Samsung had tags as well, but yeah, you got different color tags, and you can even create your own tags as well. So that's really cool. But how the Files app works on the iPad is basically, it's kind of similar. You can go into the different folders, but it doesn't show you the path. You have to tap this arrow right here, and then it will bring up, the different folders. So this was the last one, and then the last one, and then on my iPad. So it's kind of like, it has the same functionality, but it's different, for sure, it's different. So one thing I don't like about iOS and iPadOS is like certain simple things that are just not there, that don't make sense to me. Like for example, if I tap and hold, it brings up this little menu, and like it doesn't tap and hold the file like how it does on this, for example. Tap and hold, now it's selected, I can delete, I can move, I can select more things. But with iPadOS, tap and hold and then it's just like this. And selecting is not even like one of the first things here. In order to select files, you gotta literally tap select and then choose them one by one. You can drag as well, and then you can do what you want to do. You can delete, you can move, you can duplicate, share, compress, and all that. Like it has the functionality, but like for some things, it's not as simple as it is on Android or other operating systems. So I can tap and hold, like I said, to copy, move, share. So I'm just gonna move it, and then it will pop up a little menu exactly like how we saw here with this one. So move shows this little menu, and then you can navigate the whole device and all the folders and stuff, and then you can choose to copy it somewhere. Then how playing a video looks on the iPadOS in the Files app, you play it and it just opens up, and then you can like, you know, scrub the timeline. You can even edit it, and you can rotate it very quickly, pause, share. So that's pretty cool. On the Z Fold 6, you can play your videos as well and scrub and all that stuff. You can edit, rotate, lock, the same stuff. Then you can change the view on iPadOS. So you got lists, you got columns. So it's kind of like Mac OS, and then you got icons, and then you can create a new folder by pressing this at the top. To create a new folder on the Galaxy, you got to go to the dots and then you press create new folder. So two different methods, but both of them work fine. To rename, you can just tap the name to quickly rename. Whereas with this, you got to tap and hold, and then you press the dots and you can rename. So this is faster on the iPadOS versus this is a little bit more tedious. So certain things go back and forth in terms of like, you know, convenience and stuff like that. And then you got searching, so I could search through the whole device, so recent or on my iPad, so that's pretty cool. And then here I can search Beyblade, and then it will show me the whole device and all the different things, so it's bringing up the folders and stuff. You can add filters on the Z Fold, so to narrow things down, so current folder only, search inside files. You can do different time periods, so yesterday, past 7 days, past 30 days, different file types. You can even see your recent searches, which is pretty cool. So there's more depth when it comes to searching on the Z Fold 6, and that's why I was saying that this is more closer to like an actual computer level files app and files system. Yeah, like the iPad one is functional and it works, but like I feel like this just has a little bit more intuitiveness and features. But yeah, that's basically it. There's not too much else to talk about. So when you connect the external drive to the iPad, it will show up here, and then boom, SSD 2 is here, and you have access to everything on the external drive as long as it's compatible, of course. And then you can play the videos that are in it. You can move files. You can even drag them and drop them like I showed on the Z Fold, and use your other finger to navigate. You can do the same thing on both of them. You can do everything you could do on the iPad itself, but within the external drive as well. So let me just move this file to the iPad to show you how it looks when you're moving files over. So it shows you the progress in this little thing right here. You can click it to expand and see the actual stats. It shows you the update and stuff. You can also cancel them if you want to. And yeah, it's pretty fast. And then boom, the file is now here. When it comes to ejecting your external drives from your iPads and iPhones, there's no actual eject button or anything like that. So you kind of just plug it out and it should be good. Apparently, like nothing will happen to your drives. But if you want to be safe and like make sure the drive is powered off, you can turn off your iPad screen and then wait maybe like a minute or 30 seconds. And then the drive should be like powered down, and then you can just plug it out. That's apparently a safer option to do. So now when you connect the external drive to your Z Fold 6, it should pop up here as well in the Files app. But it also pops up as a notification, and that is important for later on. USB storage 1 is here, and you have the same stuff, so you see the folders, all the files on it, and it's just a different layout. But you can also, like I said, switch it to a grid layout, and it's not exactly like the iPad, but it's kind of similar. You can tap and hold and select multiple things all at once, copy stuff off of it, do whatever you want. Same functionality as the iPad as well. So now I'm just gonna move a file off of it to show you what it looks like, just like how I did with the iPad. So I'm gonna move it to downloads, and let's go to exports. And then I'm gonna press move here, and then boom, now it's moving. So I can hide the pop-up. I can literally go do whatever I want on the phone, and it will still be moving the file, and it shows you that update in the notifications. That's something that the iPad doesn't do, which is unfortunate. I could tap it to go back. I could also go around do whatever I want, move even more files, and they will all pop up here and work. So there's done. It shows you, go show in folder, and there is the file on the phone. And I think it was just as fast as well. And then with the external drive on Android, you can eject it. Android makes a very big deal of ejecting your external drives, whereas iPadOS and iOS do not do that. So if I plug out the drive, then the phone is going to tell me you plugged out your drive without ejecting it. You should restart your phone right now so that you don't risk losing files and stuff like that. So it's a big deal on Android. So you have the option of unmounting right here, and then you can also unmount from the notifications as well, or open it. Then you can also format the drive as well to work better with Android. But I don't want it to format because I want it to work on all my devices. So it's formatted to exFAT, I believe, right now. So it works with Android, iOS, iPadOS, Macs, and Windows. So I use that on everything. But I'm just going to unmount it now. And then as you see, it's unmounted. And I can either mount it again to use it more, or I can just plug it out and it should be good to go. No issue with losing files or anything like that. So that's how, the Files app works with external drives and just in general. So now let's move on. So just to clarify, on the iPad, you can open multiple instances of the Files app, and you can also drag and drop your files across the two windows or two instances. So I just moved it from here on my iPad to the LumaFusion folder as well. So that works as well, but you are limited to just 2 split screen apps versus 3 on the Z Fold 6. And then you can only have 1 floating window versus unlimited on the Z Fold 6. So up to 3 folders open at the same time on the iPad and unlimited on the Z Fold 6. But both of them have the same functionality, just different limitations, which is pretty cool. But now that takes us into the next category that I want to compare them in, and that's multitasking. So as you can see, I'm dragging from the taskbar and opening up Files app into split screen. So let's start here. So both of them have a basic split screen, you can resize them slightly. Like I showed earlier, the iPad only has like really 2 sizes for resizing your split screen. Z Fold 6 can go in increments, like very small increments. So you can do a lot. People might think like, oh, why would you want to do that? But specific use cases are there for different kinds of sizes. So like not every app needs to be big, not every app needs to be small. So let's say, for example, right here on this side, I will have like a prompter or something like that, and I'm writing notes or something like that. Then I will have this side big and I can be writing with the S Pen while the prompter is here. All right, so this is a scenario that I'm talking about. So let's say you want to have a timer, then you have some drawing or writing prompts right here. So I got time, money, faith, and I can just literally draw. So now let's do time. Boom, I'll draw a circle, draw a line, draw the 12, the 6, and the points. So I'm drawing to the prompts that I have right here, and I have my timer going. I can lap, I can stop, all of that right here in these small windows. And I can even, add another prompt if somebody tells me something. Like, let's say I'm in class and like the teacher's giving us prompts on the go, so I can say like, okay, teacher said Pokemon, so I can write Pokemon right here, and then I can continue working on that. This is just an example of not every app in multitasking and split screen needs to be big. And for example, I can make the timer even smaller so that, because I only need to see the time, like I only need the minute, the hour, the seconds, whatever, and the lap and the stop buttons are there. And now this app is a little bit bigger. I can increase the size of this if I want to. So the flexibility of the multitasking on the Z Fold 6, in my opinion, is very underrated and kind of misunderstood. People think that because something is small that it's unusable, but that's not the case at all. So yeah, this is just one use case for how the Z Fold 6 does multitasking and split screen. On the iPad, you just have a basic 2-screen split, like I said, with the limitations. And you can use them, right? Let's do a similar scenario on the iPad. Okay, so on the iPad now, I have clock in the floating window. And now what I can do is I can move to the side, so it's there. And then I have my prompts. So let's say prompts, time, money, and faith. And then boom, now I can do the same thing kind of that I was doing on the Z Fold. Oh, no way. No way. This Apple Pencil doesn't have the tap functionality. Apple is crazy, bro. What the heck? Anyways, so I can do the same stuff, kind of. I'm not sure why the screen is like blinking. That's very strange. But yeah, kind of a similar layout, but now I can't see the timer and the prompt at the same time. So that's pretty whack about the way that the iPad does it. So more functionality, more flexibility on the Z Fold 6. and we're going to get into another form of multitasking. Before I exit out of this, actually, another cool thing about multitasking on the Z Fold 6 is that you can save app pairs. So press that, and I can save it to my taskbar, my home screen, or the edge panel. I'll get into edge panel later, but if I save the app pair, then boom, I leave this. I can even close all 3 of these apps. So let's do that. And now the app pair is here. All I got to do is just tap it, and boom, it opens it out in that layout that I had it in before. So really sick functionality on the Z Fold 6 in terms of like quick multitasking and resuming your sessions. On the iPad, you do not have app pairs. At most, you have the apps in the layout in the task switcher, but as soon as you close them, that functionality is gone. So now you got to set up your whole session again. So I got to go boom, and then I got to go boom. So you got to restart your whole thing. Whereas with this, it's just one tap to get into that session that I had before. Really cool. All right, so now the other multitasking comparison that I want to do was gaming while watching a video or, doing something else at the same time. All right, so now I'm in YouTube, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the same video, and then you have this layout right here. I'm going to go full screen. Then I'm going to try to open another app side by side, which is a game. So on the iPad, I can't split screen with a game. Whereas with the Z Fold 6, I can split screen with the game. So if I 2 finger swipe from the bottom, then I can choose Wuthering Waves, and there you go. I can also rotate it so that the game is in a better aspect ratio and a little bit bigger, and the video is just fine as well. So in terms of content consumption and multitasking combined, this is something that the Z Fold 6 does better than the iPad. Like, yes, the iPad is a bigger screen, which might equal to a better content consumption time for some people. The Z Fold 6 is smaller, but then you can do more things because of the software that it has. Like, I can literally play a game while watching a video, a podcast, listening to music, scrolling Reddit, Twitter, and on top of that, something that I do pretty often personally is I will have a video playing and Reddit on the side. So now I can be listening to a video podcast and scrolling Reddit at the same time. In between my, like, let's say I'm playing a game that has matches where you gotta wait for the match to start and stuff like that. I can do those things. And you might think like, oh, it's a lot of stimulation. You're not really doing blah, blah. You can't do all that stuff at one time. The way I see it is like this. When I'm watching a video in this kind of setup, the video is more for like audio. So I'm listening to what they're saying more so than watching the video itself. Obviously, if it's a video that is visually oriented, like it's all about the visuals, then I'm not going to put that on while I'm multitasking and playing a game at the same time. But something like a video podcast, I'll put that on, listen to what they're saying. I might look at their reactions and the laugh and the joke and stuff like that. But mainly it's for the audio. And then Reddit is just seeing what's going on in Reddit. Like, what the Galaxy Fold community is saying right now while I'm waiting for my game to start. So that is just a crazy layout. I can save the app here, like I said earlier. And it just works really well. So depending on who you are, you might prefer a big full screen for playing a game or watching a video. Or you might prefer being able to play a game while watching a video. And it's pretty comfortable in my opinion. This is about the size of a regular smartphone like this. And then you have so many different layouts like I showed you. You can do it like this where it's wider, increase the size of the game. The video might be a little bit smaller, but that's what you sacrifice. You can also have a third app like I showed you in this orientation as well. There's so many different options and things you can do with the Z Fold 6 in terms of multitasking. But the iPad is locked to just this. So now there is something called Stage Manager. I talked about it a little bit earlier. Stage Manager basically gives you like a Samsung DeX type of interface on the iPad screen and also external monitors, which we'll get into later as well. But you turn that on and then boom, now your apps are in Windows and you can move them around. You can resize them, but not certain apps don't resize. Like games generally don't resize. I haven't seen a game that can resize yet. Whereas on the Z Fold 6, if I put a game into a floating window, I can literally resize that game to whatever size I want. And again, you might be thinking this is useless, but let's say I'm playing a game or somebody messages me and they're like, yo, what was that urgent thing you were talking about? And I don't know off the top of my head. Turn my game into a floating window, put it off to the side. It's still running. I'm still in the game. So if it's an online game, I'm not going to get penalized for leaving the game. It's still running. I go in the browser, I open up my messages at the same time. I can search for whatever that person is asking me for, check my game, put it back here, do all that stuff, bring back my game. If I need to, I can literally move around in the game quickly and then go back to, doing this stuff. And then when all that's done, I just quickly go back and full screen my game and nothing happened. No penalization, no getting in trouble. and potentially saving yourself from getting killed by an enemy, you know, because you're standing around, things like that. So people love to say like small windows, floating windows, what's the point? But like there is a use case for it if you really use these things on a regular basis like I do. So yeah, you can't resize games and a lot of apps on the iPad, even in Stage Manager, even with like being able to move them around and them being in Windows. But Stage Manager is cool because you can just open apps in different sizes and resize a lot of different apps. So let's say playing a game, I can respond to messages quickly while the game is still in the background. So it's a similar workflow, but it's not exactly the same, you know? So I do like Stage Manager on the iPad. I think it's an improvement over the standard iPad OS, but it's not exactly flexible like the Z Fold 6. And then going back to playing games while watching a video, you can't really do that on the iPad, even if you rotate it like this. So actually, I just discovered that you technically can do something like that on the iPad now with the way that Stage Manager works. So now I got the game at the bottom and then the video at the top, kind of like the Z Fold 6 can do. So that, I guess my mistake, is something that you can actually do nowadays with your iPad Pro or your iPads in general that have Stage Manager. So I guess it's similar. It's not exactly the same, but hey bro, this actually works. So my bad. You do have to turn on Stage Manager for that to actually make this functionality work. So just note that. But let's get in the game and see how it actually looks. Let's go. So on both of them, you can quickly tap, you know, the top app and, you know, skip through the video if you want to. So that's pretty sick. And you have the game running at the bottom as well. And then a cool thing about the Z Fold 6 is because it has a hinge, you can do stuff like this. So I can rotate it and then I can prop it up. And now my video is playing at an angle. So like, let's say I'm walking around doing stuff, I can still see my video at an angle. And then I have my game at the bottom if I need to interact with the game quickly and make sure I'm not dying or something like that. So you got flexibility with the Z Fold 6 in many different ways. Like look at the hinge. It's pretty sick. And then you can still resize the app as well, even in flex mode. So I can make the game a little bit bigger and the video smaller. And it's still propped up and angled. So I can see the video if I'm not like fully playing it and I'm doing something else. Like I said, I'm standing up, whatever, I can angle the video to see it and still interact with the game if I need to. Very, very, very flexible and sick. All right, so now we're in the game. I'm just gonna show you what playing this game looks like while in split screen. Doing the little tutorial, climbing up the wall. All right, my first fight, let's get it. Feels like Genshin Impact. Okay, now on the iPad, the aspect ratio of the game is a little strange because, like I said, we are in Stage Manager, and Stage Manager does not give you a lot of freedom in terms of sizing of the apps and stuff. But it definitely works though, don't get me wrong. So now let's see how much you can actually see on each of these devices, you know, based on the size of the app and stuff. All right, so in terms of like the field of view, because the iPad screen is a little bit more square in this, like, you know, orientation, with Stage Manager, like I said, you can't resize the app, so it's a little bit more square. The Z Fold 6 is giving you a more wider view, so you can see a little bit more. Like, for example, look right here, see the flower, the whole plant is cut off, but on the Z Fold 6, you can see like most of the plants and even more of the environment on the side. And then even on the other side, the wall, there's so much more of the wall, a lot more that you can see on the Z Fold 6 because it has a wider view, which is more closer to what the game was made for, like a normal phone type screen. So yeah, although the iPad can do a layout like this, like I showed, it's not perfect because the Z Fold 6 is built in, like this is what it's meant to do. I don't think the developers were intended for people to actually do something like this with a game at the bottom, video at the top. If they were, then you would have that normal split screen. So yeah, that is multitasking on these two devices. The Z Fold 6 has superior software in terms of multitasking, but the iPad Pro has a bigger screen. So I guess it's trade-offs, right? All right, so now let's compare the video viewing experience. And this is YouTube when you open it up and you're in landscape mode, you're gonna have a layout like this where you have the comments at the bottom, tap it, and then the comments come to the side. Obviously the iPad's gonna be the same experience, but bigger than the Z Fold 6. And if you rotate, you got it like this where it takes up half of the screen on the Z Fold 6, less than half on the iPad, but it fits the aspect ratio. And then when you play videos like this, it is more comparable than like the other layouts for sure, because it's, you know, a smaller portion of the iPad screen. But then you got more comments at the bottom, obviously. Then if you full screen in this layout, it's gonna look like this, obviously. But who watches videos like that on the iPad? You go like this. And this is the main party trick. So again, The Z Fold 6 is a really good viewing experience. You know, it's definitely not that much bigger than like a Pro Max, for example, but it is bigger for sure at the end of the day. And it's a nice experience. Like the screen looks very nice, very vivid, very clear display. But then the iPad is like, this is like what you want to watch videos and movies on. It's a huge display for watching content. So it almost makes the Z Fold 6 look small, even though it's pretty big for a phone. And then if we do split screen, so it's going to be a very similar experience. However, Z Fold 6, you can have up to 3 apps in split screen. You can manipulate the windows to any size you want to make the layout work for you, and you could just go crazy with it. And in Stage Manager on the iPad, you can have more apps open than the initial limitation. Those apps will start to overlap each other. Versus like here, if I open an app in floating windows, it's there, but then I can adjust the transparency, so I can make it transparent so it's still there, but it's, you know, hard to see and you can see what's behind it. But then you can also quickly move your floating windows off to the side like this, and it's just there, but it's still open and running. Or you can minimize it like this, and it's just in this little bubble. You can open up whenever you want. So you got a lot of options in terms of multitasking on the Z Fold 6. On the iPad, you can resize your windows and move them around as you need them. You can also push them off to the side like that and then bring them back. But it's a little bit more work. You know, it's an intentional swipe to put it off to the side like this. It's not just like the Z Fold 6. Overall, I think both of them are pretty good at multitasking, especially the iPad with Stage Manager. If it's a basic split screen, then you're more limited. However, the Z Fold 6 is just more flexible, and I enjoy what Samsung is doing with the software more on the Z Fold 6. If you're consuming content and it's just one thing on the screen, then the iPad is better for sure. But if you're multitasking while consuming content, then I think the Z Fold 6 is better at doing that. And then we have picture-in-picture, so you can increase the size on both of them, move them around the screen, you can push it off to the side on both of them as well. And yeah, and it's just there to quickly see what's going on in your video while still doing something else. You know, it's gonna be really, you can make it really small on the iPad to the point that it's comparable to the Z Fold 6's pop-up view, or you can make it like pretty decent and you can still get some stuff done. But again, it's gonna overlap on both of them. It really depends on what you're doing. And then the Z Fold 6 also has more dynamic ways of viewing videos and stuff. So you can go into flex mode like this. You got controls at the bottom, which is really nice. And the other beauty of flex mode is that you can angle the video. So if I'm walking around and stuff like that, I can angle it so that I can see the video a little bit more. However, the iPad Pro has its keyboard case. I can angle the video same way as the Z Fold 6, and it doesn't take up any more real estate than the iPad normally would if it's flat on the table, because the keyboard case is basically the size of the iPad, you know, at the bottom. It only lifts the iPad off the surface while still taking up that same real estate on the table itself, if that makes sense. You can't angle it as much, obviously. It's still pretty decent for walking around and viewing, you know, videos and stuff on your iPad. However, though, the convenience of the Z Fold 6, again, is that it is a phone and it does close up and go in your pocket. So you can continue watching videos in a smaller view like this if you're doing different things. 2 fingers to enter text messages and respond to a text while still watching my video. I can even make the video small like this at the top and then continue doing what I'm doing with one hand on my device. So the flexibility of the Z Fold 6 is there. All right, so now I'm gonna do a quick performance test between them. As you can see, I have the same video file in LumaFusion. I'm gonna export the videos at the same time to see how fast each device can do it and which one is faster. Obviously, it's gonna be the iPad Pro, but let's just see what happens. And then also I'm gonna do some quick edits, you know, to the point where like usually the Z Fold 6 starts stuttering, and just see how the performance is, the playback and all that stuff is between the 2 devices. And just for clarity, it's at the same megabytes per second rate, so 61.9, 61.86, which is basically 61.9 here. Same resolution, same codec, everything. So it's the same file. Let's just export it now at the same settings. All right, so same settings, you know, same resolution, same video quality, same FPS, same audio quality as well, same codec, and even the same file format. It's gonna be a little bit delayed, but oops. Okay, so we're going. Z Fold 6 got a little bit of a head start, probably like a half a second more. So let's see what happens. So the iPad was actually slower at exporting this video at the same settings than the Z Fold 6 by around 3 minutes and 40 seconds. So almost 4 minutes of a slower export time. So to be honest, bro, that is pretty crazy that the iPad is, I don't know, I'm just very surprised the Z Fold 6 is holding it down with the export times. So now I'm gonna go into the editing portion and, you know, try to get this phone to start stuttering and slow down and then I will export that project file and put it on the iPad and see if the same thing happens. So I'm just going to be cutting, making a lot of cuts in the video to the point where the phone usually starts slowing down and giving trouble to play back smoothly. Still smooth. It's making me look like I'm a scammer. Okay, look, it's starting to get choppy here. Just scrubbing through. We're seeing some glitches. It's not the worst yet. So it's doing a pretty good job with the playback. I can't get it to start lagging right now. Maybe after editing for like 10 minutes, then it will start to lag. And as you can see, all the things that I did on the Z Fold 6 are here. So it's a cool feature that you can share project files between different devices, even iOS to Android. Scrubbing is a lot smoother than the Z Fold 6 was, like, just to be expected. The app is more optimized on iPad OS and iOS. The only interesting thing though, although the iPad version is faster, like the iPads are more generally powerful and work better with LumaFusion, for some reason, like, look, watch, I play and it starts instantly. Playback is instant when you press play on Android phones and Android devices like tablets. But on iOS, iPadOS, watch this. There's always a like half a second delay. It's so strange. Like, it doesn't lag, it doesn't stutter. There's no issues with cutting. Like, it's just very smooth overall. But for some reason, when you're playing back the video, there's always a half a second delay, no matter how powerful your device is on iOS and iPadOS. So I never understood that. I don't get why that happens. So in theory, if the Z Fold 6 never lagged or stuttered like it did when you're editing long or bigger projects over time, it would be a better experience than the iPad because of how fast the playback is. Like, it's very responsive when you're trying to play something. On the iPad, like, there's always a stutter. But other than that, the stability, the performance, the general smoothness is going to be better on the iPad just because it's more powerful and the app is more optimized for iOS. You got more options. Like, you can adjust the quality of the playback so that impacts the performance and, you know, when you're playing back the video in the video editing app. So you can make it best, good, balanced, fastest. Fastest will be the lowest quality, but it will allow you to edit more smoothly and have less issues with lagging if you ever come to that. But yeah, generally the iPad is going to be a better experience, but it's just strange that the playback is faster at starting on the Z Fold 6. So the iPad definitely wins in terms of performance outside of exporting because Z Fold 6 destroyed it for some reason. Let's compare internet browsing speeds. Okay, I got Apple ready there, and then so the iPad was clearly faster there. Let's try another website. Ready, go. iPad is definitely faster in terms of browsing speeds, and it's pretty noticeable. Let me try Google Chrome just to see if there's any difference between, you know, what browser I use. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, this is just a lot faster. So now let me try the iPad with Google Chrome. All right, this is both of them on Chrome. 3, 2, 1. The Fold 6 was a little bit faster. Let's open a new page. Let's go to the community tab. 3, 2, 1. I don't know, it's pretty close. It might just be me pressing one of them faster than the other. I don't know. 3, 2, 1. Z Fold 6 was first. So when you use Chrome against Chrome, the speeds are very comparable. We're talking like milliseconds of a difference. So it's nothing too crazy, and you'll have similar performance when it comes to web browsing. In terms of gaming, the iPad is gonna definitely have a better performance in general, like long term. Let's say you're playing a game for more than like 15 minutes. The iPad will last longer and be stable. Like, you're probably gonna get 60 FPS regardless of how long you play on this iPad because of how powerful it is. But on the Z Fold 6, after like 15 minutes, it's gonna start to throttle down. What that means is it's gonna try to limit the power so that it cools down and not overheat and destroy itself. And so you'll probably, you know, sit at around like 45 FPS on average, playing like high performance games like this game or Genshin Impact. So in terms of like the higher end of gaming, the Z Fold 6 will not do as good as the iPad in sustained performance, like playing over a long duration of time. But in short bursts, the performance will be pretty similar. And for lower tier games, like let's say Minecraft, for example, or Pokemon Unite, Wild Rift, the performance will be comparable between the two. I think you'll have stable performance on the Z Fold 6 for regardless of how long you play. So higher end games, the iPad will be better for sure in the long duration play sessions. Now, in terms of ergonomics and holding, I think the Z Fold 6 is a lot more comfortable. but in the default orientation without like split screen or anything, you see less on the screen because of the square aspect ratio. Whereas on the iPad, when it's just full screen on the game, you have a lot more space, but it is a bigger device, right? So there's a lot more to carry and balance in your hand. It is heavier, so there's that to consider. So perks of the Z Fold 6 is like you can literally pull this out at any time and play with this big screen. And it is pretty immersive. It's not as big as the iPad, but I think this is a pretty decent size and it's pretty immersive. And if you want to, you can play on the cover display. And in my opinion, this is not a bad experience at all, especially if you're trying to get a quick session in. You're not trying to like play for too long. So there is that option as well. I love to play games on the Z Fold 6 like this, in split screen with, you know, a video on top and the game at the bottom. This just allows you to have a better normal aspect ratio for the game, so you're not missing out on anything. You're not cutting out things on the side. And games just work better when it's like this, or in the other orientation when it's like this, versus the square aspect ratio that the Z Fold 6 is normally in. So if you want like a really good experience for gaming and like a normal experience, no issues with the screen size and layout, then play it in split screen and you can mess around with that if you want. But generally, like, this is perfect for gaming, or like this if you want a longer kind of aspect ratio. This is kind of like S24 Ultra type of size screen. But yeah, general performance is going to be pretty comparable, like basically the same, no difference. Browsing is going to be very similar. Gaming, it depends on what you're doing, how long you're playing, what kinds of games you're playing. But if you're playing like low, non-serious games like Candy Crush or something like that, then the performance will be the same as well. Video editing, again, like longer sessions, this one will have issues, the Z Fold 6, and it will start to stutter and stuff. And like bigger project files will give it problems, but the iPad will handle it better and be stable for most projects, most things you throw at it. But honestly, like anything really, unless you're like a super serious video editor with like 10 tracks and you're doing so many different layers, then maybe you can push this thing to stutter and have issues. But generally, the performance should be good for most people. So yeah, performance, it depends on what you're doing. I mean, the Z Fold 6 will never really win against the iPad, unless it's like that random export and comparison. But in general, Z Fold 6 will never beat the iPad in terms of performance. All right, so now let's talk about the Apple Pencil versus the S Pen. So the Apple Pencil is loved by a lot of people. It is an industry standard for a lot of artists out there. And, you know, it's just regarded very highly. This year, the new iPads, for some reason, they cannot use the old Apple Pencil. So I have one right here. They cannot use this old Apple Pencil 2. It literally does not make sense. Like, Apple's explanation is just so stupid. And like, there's like literally a cutout right here for the charger for the new Apple Pencil Pro, which I'll talk about just now. And yeah, it's just stupid. So this is the basic Apple Pencil now that can't even connect wirelessly, can't charge it wirelessly. It can't even sync up wirelessly. It literally has to, oh, my bad, that's the wrong way. It literally has to open up like this, and then you plug in the cord, connect to the iPad, and it will connect and it will charge. That's how you charge it, that's how you connect it. And it doesn't have all the same features. Like, for example, with the old Apple Pencil 2, I can tap to switch my brush and stuff like that. And it's just a good experience. This one, you cannot tap to switch your brush. There's no tap controls. Like, it's very, 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 very silly, in my opinion, the change that Apple made. And the fact that they were saying they couldn't make the old pencil compatible. And then they created two pencils. So now you have the basic one and you have a Pro model, which is basically like giving you the features of the Apple Pencil 2 and then like one additional feature, and that's it. And then you have this one that doesn't have basic things like tap controls. Like, what the heck? So anyways, weird changes with the iPad Pros of this year and the new Apple Pencils. But for the most part, the Apple Pencil is still great. Even this basic, cheaper version of the Apple Pencil is still pretty good. But this new Apple Pencil was like, you can't even, it doesn't compare in my opinion. Like, outside of like latency and stuff like that, the S Pen is just so much better. So many more features. Like, well, for one, the basic S Pen, although it's not Bluetooth, it has a button on it and you can do so many different things with the button. Press the button, you can open up your Air command menu where you can customize that to do different things. You can press and hold the button to open the app, or you can change that to do different things as well. I'm drawing in the Notes app. I can press and hold the button and quickly erase that. So like, let's say I make a mistake, and I make a mistake, I can erase it real quick and fix it. So the button has functionality, a lot of functionality on the S Pen, even the basic one. And then there's just so many different things that the S Pen does on the Z Fold 6. Like, you got all the basic stuff that the iPad can do. You have the Notes app, which is really cool. But then you got, like, you know, you can write into text. I think you can do that on the iPad as well. But you got sketch the image. So if I draw, let's say, a bird, draw a bird, sketch the image, circle this, and generate. And there you go. We got some AI generations of the bird that I just drew. Then you got, with the Edge panel, you got Smart Select. So you can quickly select, you know, something to screenshot. You can add to a note. You can write on it quickly. You can even pin it if you want to, or you can edit it and literally write. So there's a lot of functionality here with the base model S Pen. I didn't even cover all of it. Like, there's a lot of settings that you can change. So you got Air View, which has been here for a long time. You got S Pen to text, where you can write in boxes to, you know, write text instead of typing with the keyboard. Screen off memos. So if the screen is off, what I can do with the S Pen is hold the button, double tap, and boom. Now I can quickly write a note while the screen is off, and then it will save that note, and I can pin it, whatever. Then you got more S Pen settings. So sounds, Find My S Pen. Find My S Pen only works with the S Pen Pro, which I'll get into just now. Yeah, so you got all these things. You got air actions. This is S Pen Pro stuff. And then to take you further, if you go into Good Lock, you got Pentastic, where you can customize. So this air command menu that you pop up here, you can customize that and do different layouts. And then even when you choose the layout, you could change the background of the layout. So let's say I want to put this right here. So boom, down, boom. When this pops up, I got this background right here. So there's a lot of customization there. And then what's really cool is you can customize the pointer. So you can do, you know, different shapes that they have right here. And you can also get like your own pointers. If you want like an old school Windows pointer or something like that, you can go download that and then put it as your S Pen pointer. So when you're hovering over the screen, you'll see that instead of the circle. So let's just choose something random. Let's choose this bird. Make the size like that. And I can also put the hover point, so like I can always see where it's pinpointed. And boom, now look, this is my cursor for the S Pen. When I hover over the screen, it shows this picture of the bird. The customization is sick. We already know I'm gonna go back to the default for now. And then the double tap shortcut, so I was talking about, you can customize it. So right now it's set to open an app called Krita, but you can make it do sketch the image, create a note, view all notes, smart select, all these different S Pen features right on the calendar, or you can make it open up any app on your phone. So holding the button and double tapping the screen, you can set that functionality to open any of these things. Really, really, really cool customization. So even this base model S Pen that doesn't have Bluetooth functionality has a lot more features than this right here. This Apple Pencil that got stripped and lost features from the Apple Pencil 2 that you probably had if you're buying this iPad, and now you kind of use it. You got to go sell it or give it away. So it's kind of crazy. S Pen Pro takes it to another level. This can connect to the Z Fold devices or regular S Pen devices like tablets and phones, or even the laptops. And basically it's a Bluetooth S Pen that allows you to do different things. You got air gestures, so if you press and hold the button and then do an action, it will do different things. So right now I started up sketch the image, so let's just draw a circle. If I do this, I'll open up the recent apps. If I go like this, then it will start up Smart Select, where I can select something on the screen, and then, you know, like I said, take a screenshot, edit it, all these different things. So I can use the S Pen to pause the song or video or whatever I'm listening to. I can use it to raise the volume like this, or lower the volume. I can skip the song. I can reverse, and just do a lot with the S Pen Pro. My other favorite functionality with the S Pen Pro is in the camera app. So you can use the S Pen Pro as a remote shutter. So I can press the button to take a picture or start a video. I can flip the camera around to the front camera. I can change the camera mode, so I'm in picture now, and then I can press and hold to take a burst shot, switch to another camera mode. Like, I could cycle through all of them. Really, really cool functionality, bro. And it works like flawlessly. Like, it takes some time to learn. You can get used to it pretty quickly. And yeah, this is a list of all the different actions, and each action you can customize them to do bare things. So for example, this one I can make it go back, go home, go to recent apps, or some of the S Pen features, or open the app. Literally you have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and including pressing the button and tapping the screen. That's like 6 different shortcut things that you can open up different apps or do different things on your phone very quickly with the S Pen. So 6 different options. So it only has 1 button, but it's as if you had 6 buttons that can do different things. And then on top of that, you can customize the air command menu and put, you know, different shortcuts to different functions or different apps. And this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This air command menu gives you 10 options, 10 shortcuts to different apps and things, plus the 6 gestures and stuff like that you can open up either apps or functionality. So you got like 16 different buttons, quote unquote, buttons that you can use to do different things on your phone with this S Pen right here. I don't know about you guys, but like this is super powerful. And then on top of that, bro, just to take it a little bit further, this S Pen has onboard storage. So if I copy something with this S Pen, like let's say a screenshot or I copy text, I can then take it to my Samsung tablet or my Samsung laptop and then you'll paste it with this S Pen because it's saved to the onboard storage and it just works like that. It's just super sick. It charges USB-C just like this new Apple Pencil and it just works really well, bro. Transporting the pens. The nice thing about the iPad is that you can store the new Apple Pencil on the top even if it doesn't charge, and then you can walk around with it like that. With the Z Fold 6, you're definitely gonna have to carry this S Pen Pro alongside it, you know, in like your bag or something like that or in your pocket. And then with this one, you have the S Pen case where you can put it in the back, and it's not bad integration, but it's definitely not as convenient as like just a magnetic attachment. However, you can lose your Apple Pencil even though the magnet is pretty decent. So yeah, that's the styluses compared. I think the S Pen is the better stylus, but then the thing that wins about the iPad is the app selection. So we'll go over that real quick right now. All right, so depending on why you buy either one of these devices, you might have different use cases. And you know, obviously iPad OS and iOS has different apps. Android has different apps that are accessible to it. So some of the apps that are kind of the same. So if you video edit, then you have LumaFusion on both of these platforms, which LumaFusion is the best mobile video editor in my opinion when it works. Like I said, there are some glitches and issues, optimization issues more so on the Android side, but when it works, it's the best video editor. Honestly, even with the glitches and issues, I think on Android it's still the best one that you have access to. So video editing, I feel like the software selection is pretty much the same. You do have Final Cut Pro now and DaVinci Resolve on the iPad, so there's that. I guess it's a little bit better because of those apps, but for the most part, you have a good video editor on both platforms. When it comes to photo editing and stuff like that, you have Affinity Photo, which is like basically Photoshop, and it works. Like there's so many features, so many things you can do, like as deep as seas. So there's that. In terms of drawing, you have Procreate, which is again just a really amazing app when it comes to drawing and painting and stuff like that. So many features, and they continue to update it and add more and more stuff, so it's just really sick. And then when it comes to drawing on the Z Fold 6, you have certain apps like, I think these are good apps too. You have certain apps like, for example, you got Krita. Krita is a highly customizable drawing app / painting app where you can do so many different things. If you're willing to learn and dive deeper into the software, you can do a lot with Krita, and it works really well with S Pens. You can customize the button functionality and just so many different things. You can go deep. You can probably get similar levels of like quality in terms of drawing and painting and stuff like that as you would with Procreate on the app Krita, but it's a higher learning curve. I think it's not like as laid out and nice. Like as you can see, this is kind of like a computer interface right here, but I promise you this app is really top tier in terms of the functionality and all the options you have. And then for like a more basic app, you got Sketchbook. Sketchbook is just like a really good free drawing app, and it has a good amount of tools, you know, some customization. It works well with S Pens. You can adjust so many different things. You got some gestures. Well, I don't have them turned on, but you got gestures and stuff like that. And yeah, Sketchbook is just a good app, but again, it doesn't necessarily compare to Procreate. Like Procreate still is the higher level app, but Sketchbook is pretty decent. It even has a feature where you can record your drawing session kind of like on Procreate, but Procreate has a little bit more depth to that feature. So there are some comparable apps in terms of drawing, but again, the iPad just has the easier, more simple and straightforward options that just work and operate at a higher level by default. When it comes to music production, Z Fold 6 has access to FL Studio Mobile, which is actually it's a full DAW. Like it works. You can record audio into it with a mic, external mic. You can connect that to this, and then you can also make beats with, you know, this right here built in, or you can even connect a MIDI keyboard to your Z Fold 6 and go crazy with that too. So you can actually like create music on FL Studio Mobile, but again, it's not going to be as good as Logic Pro. Logic Pro is just like, for me, like I love Logic Pro on my Mac Mini and on Mac in general. So Logic Pro I think is just better overall. However, as you can see here, it's subscription based. So you got to pay monthly or annually to use Logic Pro on your iPad. Whereas FL Studio is just a one-time payment. And I think the ceiling is pretty much the same. Like you can do anything that you would do in Logic Pro on FL Studio, I think, for the most part. Obviously not like to the computer level, but like for the apps, I think the parity is pretty much there. The Logic Pro layout is just better and you'll have an easier time with it. But in terms of like getting stuff done, I think you can do a lot with FL Studio Mobile, and that is also accessible on the iPad as well. And then in terms of note taking, to be honest, I don't really use iOS specific note taking apps like a Notability and stuff like that. I don't really use that stuff. I use the built-in notes and Google Keep Notes. Keep Notes is available on both devices. It's not really good for taking notes with the pens. However, if you're gonna take notes with the pens, I would suggest just getting familiar with the built-in notes apps. And I think the notes app on Samsung just has so much more features, so much more capability. There's a lot more options and things that you can do with the notes app on the Samsung devices, and it works really well with like other apps. Like for example, I can take a note, then I can go here and I can add this note as a reminder, and that will go to my reminder app, and then boom, now this layout right here, I can find that right there. See, it's on the widget on my home screen. So that's just really sick functionality. And then I can go to the reminder, can, you know, edit it, whatever. I can put a timer, I can put a time for it to notify me by, and I can tap that and go back into the app and start writing. And then you have, you know, shared notes. So I got some shared notebooks with my wife to create like different things. Like we're writing some music, we got some scripts for videos, and I can go to those and just work on those things. Just really cool functionality. And like I showed you some of the S Pen features before, but like it just works really well. You can customize the layout, template of the page. You can even import like PDFs to give you like different notebook type layouts. So if you go on Etsy and you buy like a digital planner or something like that, you can import it into your Samsung Notes app. So I think Samsung Notes is better than Apple Notes. But if you're going to use notes or note taking on either of these devices, I suggest just getting familiar with the built-in notes apps that they have. So in terms of that, I think there is parity. I don't think the Apple devices have a better note taking app. I mean, they might have more selection, so I guess there is that. It is better in terms of what you can find, but in terms of like functionality and like accessibility for like good apps, I think Samsung devices have access to good note taking apps as well. In terms of photo editing, I didn't mention that. There is PixArt. That's what I use mainly. I can basically get everything done that I would use Affinity Photo for in PixArt. It's not going to be as nice, and PixArt is free, so it has ads and stuff like that. Whereas Affinity Photo is a one-time payment for, like, the ceiling is just higher. So it's a professional level app. I don't necessarily know of, you know, professional level photo editing apps on Android, but you could. There are things like Snapseed, Lightroom, Photoshop Mobile. So you got some different apps. I think PixArt is just the best in terms of like a free app that does it all. You just gotta explore and learn different things. And then in the gallery apps for both of these devices, one thing that I really love is being able to cut out things from images and videos. That really helps a lot with editing thumbnails. Like you can do the same thing on the Samsung device. So go to some, tap and hold, and then boom. Now that object or person or whatever is cut out, and I can save it as an image on a transparent background and add it to a thumbnail. So that is very valuable and useful for me on both of these devices. But yeah, so the iPad has more apps that are catered towards it, and you know, just better optimization in general, because there's only one kind of device on iPad OS, whereas with Samsung devices, they're using Android, so it's not necessarily their own platform, and there's a bunch of different Android devices that developers are making apps for. So the optimization is just never going to be as good as iOS unless Samsung starts creating their own first-party apps for everything. And just to add, their first-party apps are really good, by the way. If you haven't tried them, I think you should give them a chance and try them out. They got a lot of cool features. They work really well in my experience. In terms of maintenance and cleaning these devices, obviously with the iPad, you only have one screen to wipe down and clean, whereas with the Z Fold 6, you got two screens. You got your outside screen, and then you got your inside screen. But I guess that's not necessarily bad, because if you have an iPad, that means that you most likely have another phone, which you probably clean as well if you're cleaning your iPad. So, you know, you gotta maintain your regular phone and your tablet. Now let's talk about accessories. So we already talked about some accessories like the S Pen versus the Apple Pencil, and we talked about a little bit about using SSDs, things like these external drives where you can save files off of the device. So now let's talk about like actual accessories. So like, let's say you're taking these devices to go be productive in like a coffee shop or something like that. You know, you want to sit down, get some work done outside of your house. What kind of accessories are you going to use? For the Z Fold 6, it doesn't have a case or a keyboard that you can just, you know, put it on. So you're going to have to do something like this. You're going to have to get a setup where you buy, you know, a kickstand, or you have a case. So you got a kickstand like this, and then you got folding keyboard most likely, so you can just open it up, and then you got a mouse, a wireless mouse. This is most likely your setup in the coffee shop. if you're working off of your Z Fold 6, you're gonna do something like this. You know, you're carrying these 3 items to get some work done. So now the Z Fold 6 with these 3 items, they do fold down. Something like this is not necessarily a bad setup at all. Really portable. And then let's just see how much they weigh. Put the Z Fold 6. I put all these items on the scale, and all these items together is around 725 grams versus the 400 something grams of the iPad itself. But of course, with the iPad, you know, you're going to be productive outside the house as well, and you're not going to be carrying the iPad by itself. You're going to be carrying it with accessories. You might be carrying it with accessories like this if you're somebody who saves money, but if you're somebody who wants the whole package of the iPad, then you're going to buy the keyboard case. So let's compare the keyboard case weight and the iPad to, you know, this little setup right here. Again, this is very portable, very easy to pack and put somewhere. You can put all this into one bag, and then you can also throw in a charger and stuff like that, and you're good. All right, so now with the iPad, this year they made a new Magic Keyboard, and it's actually kind of nice. I like that they added the function row. It's pretty sick, and it feels more premium than the last one. You know, has a aluminum build and stuff like that. I think it's aluminum, but it's a sturdy build. And then the iPad just pops in like that, and it's magnetic, so you can just take it off, which is really nice. Very quick and easy to use. And it moves like that. It's kind of like a little laptop. Like, you can literally use this on your lap, you know? Versus the Z Fold 6 setup that I just showed you, you can't really use it on your lap. You can, technically, but it's going to be like you're jumbling around. That's more for like a desktop setup, where this is a little bit more versatile in where you can use it. So anyways, this is the full setup. You know, you got your Apple Pencil at the top, your Magic Keyboard, and you're carrying your iPad around most likely like this. So let's see how much it weighs compared to the Z Fold 6 and all the accessories. So yeah, here we go, the full setup with the iPad, and that is around 1,000 grams. So, you know, slightly more heavy. Let's see in pounds. So this is about 2.3 pounds altogether versus Z Fold 6 with all the accessories is about 1.6 pounds. So honestly, it's a little bit closer than I thought it would be. But yeah, you got 1.6 pounds for all this stuff, or 2.3 pounds with the iPad and the Magic Keyboard setup. I do think both of these setups are highly portable though, and they're smaller than like a laptop or something like that. The weight might not be a big deal to a lot of people, but yeah, in a coffee shop, you can either pull out your iPad with the Magic Keyboard like this, or you can bring the Z Fold 6 with all those accessories. Which one is better for you? Obviously, it depends on like what you value. That's not the only scenario, right? You're gonna be using this as your phone for the multitasking, for the cameras, you know, a bunch of different ways that you're gonna be using your Z Fold 6 that you might not use your iPad. Whereas your iPad is gonna be your tablet, maybe your work device and stuff like that. So what you value the most is what is going to determine which one is more worth it in that coffee shop scenario. And then again, for the Z Fold 6, you have another option. So instead of, you know, carrying all those accessories, you could just get a lap dock like this, the U-Dock X Pro 15-inch, and it has a touchscreen, it has a keyboard, a trackpad, all that stuff built into it. And all you have to do is just plug in your Z Fold 6 and it becomes a laptop when you connect to this device. So you could use something like this, and it's an all-in-one solution to that productivity that you might be seeking from one device, which is your phone. So all you do is just connect your phone with the cable, and you could also do it wirelessly as well. It has that capability, and now you have a full laptop-like experience. You know, the trackpad is decent, the keyboard is decent, the build quality is decent, and then the screen is huge. It's a 15-inch screen, and it looks pretty good, to be honest. And yeah, you can literally get real work done. You can use all your apps in Windows. You can manipulate the size, and it is touchscreen with the Samsung Dex software. So it's a really cool setup right here. You can play games, you can get work done, you can do so many different things. You can have split screen, so if I drag this window to the left, then it will allow me to split screen with another window, and I can adjust them dynamically or whenever I want, you know, go back and forth. And then it also has a built-in speaker if you want to listen to speaker out loud. If you don't want to, it's all good. It has a headphone jack on the side, or Bluetooth with your device. You know, this has a wireless charger. You could charge your device on that wirelessly, or you can set it so that while your phone is connected to this thing right here, it can charge your device via the cable that it's already using to connect to the screen. So very versatile setup. It's only one cable, so you can move this wherever you want. You know, you're not restricted. You can also use the 360 hinge and put it like this. Now you can watch videos a little bit more comfortably without the keyboard being in the way. You can bend it, use it as a tablet if you want. So this is also another scenario and setup that you can do with your Z Fold device that is comparable to the iPad. Samsung Dex is just a cool software, and like in terms of like getting work stuff done, so for like the Microsoft apps and the Google apps, literally you could just use all the web app versions. So you can go in the internet browser and then go to those websites and use the web app versions and you'll be alright. So yeah, it's a decent setup. It's definitely more comparable to what the iPad has with the Magic Keyboard. And if you're somebody who is down to push through it, because LumaFusion is not the most compatible, like I said earlier, with the Z Fold 6, so you're gonna experience stuttering at some point. But if you're down to like, you know, body through that and, you know, fight through the potential lagging that you might have later on in the editing process, like let's say 30 minutes into a project, then, you know, it's not a bad experience at all. This is a full video editing software coming from the phone. And you might have an easier time as well if you're editing in 1080p. In my experience, I edit with 4K, so sometimes I have issues, but it's, for the most part, it's a pretty decent experience for smaller projects. So, and then the iPad Pro actually has something as well. It has a software feature that allows it to connect to external monitors pretty nicely as well. All right, so this is Stage Manager from the iPad, and it functions exactly the same with the Z Fold 6. So you got, you know, keyboard and trackpad that are, you know, connected to the iPad, and the iPad is giving off this desktop-like interface, and it's also pretty sick. So you can Galaxy Watch Ultra. Alright, if you're using a setup like this, for some reason, if I touch the touchscreen, the trackpad and stuff just stops working, and it's even on the iPad itself, I can't tap anything or click anything with the trackpad. So for some reason, the touchscreen makes it bug out, even though like it's reading the touch input, but it's not reading it on the touchscreen, it's reading it on the iPad screen. So it's kind of interesting. So just make sure you avoid the touchscreen in a setup like this, or at least that's what I have to do right now, because every time I touch the touchscreen, it bricks the whole setup, and I have to reconnect the external monitor. But yeah, so Stage Manager is kind of like Samsung Dex. You have, you know, different windows that you can open up. So let's say I open up the browser, then I can resize the windows as well, like this. I can full screen the windows, and you know, it's literally like working on a Mac kind of. You got a full screen internet browser. You can use web apps for the apps that have them, like the Microsoft Suite, the Google Suite, and get real work done as well in Safari on your iPad with a setup like this. So that is also pretty sick. Like for example, Google Keep. So now I got Google Keep Notes here. I can go to Google Docs and I could type up a document in Google Docs. Pretty sick. And like I said, it's like exactly like the Z Fold 6 in terms of what you're capable of doing. You can use your gestures to get out of it, go back to LumaFusion and video edit with a bigger screen. So that is like, it's really clean, bro. This is really clean for sure. Both of these devices are versatile, but obviously the iPad Pro has its own built-in screen, and maybe you want a 2-screen setup. So now you can actually do that. So the cursor can go back and forth between the iPad and the UPerfect screen right here. The Z Fold 6 can also do something like that, but it's going to be a smaller screen versus the iPad's bigger 11-inch screen. So they both can have a 2-screen setup with themselves, but you know, it's going to be bigger. And yeah, overall, like, it's a cool experience for both of them. So that was kind of comparing accessories with these devices and like using them in a coffee shop, and also how they connect to an external display. I do think that Samsung Dex has a little bit more freedom and fluidness, like in terms of resizing the windows and the fact that the touchscreen just works well on Samsung Dex with this kind of device. But if I touch the screen with the iPad, like I'm gonna show you. So right now the trackpad is working, but if I touch the screen with the iPad, it's doing stuff on the iPad screen right here. My touch input is getting eaten up by the iPad screen, and then now touchscreen is working, but look, you can see this widget right here, it's just in limbo, even though we're not in the editing mode. Like, it's glitched. It's just out forever on the screen. So that's kind of funny. But now I go back to the trackpad. If I try to do anything, the trackpad is not going to work. It will allow you to do your 3-finger gesture, but that's it. You can't do anything else. The keyboard stops working, and then I bring the cursor back to the iPad itself, and it still has that widget attached to it. So yeah, it bugs out when you use the touchscreen, even though it seems like it's able to read the inputs. But with the Z Fold 6, the touch input just works. So there is that. All right, so now let's talk about the specific use cases, the pros and cons of, you know, choosing one of these devices over the other. So the first thing is that the iPad is a full-fledged tablet. You know, it's a tablet first, before a computer, before anything else that you might use it for. So it is an 11-inch screen with, you know, thick bezels that you can grab onto and hold easily. You got a stylus that works. It's just nice for drawing, nice for content consumption, watching videos and all that stuff. And on top of all that, it is a lighter tablet that has a lot of power packed into it, and it's very thin. So this this is a very portable tablet beast right here. Like, you can play all the top tier games, no problem. You can video edit 4K, even higher than 4K. You can make music on this because it has professional apps now, and you can literally get real professional work done to a higher level than with the Z Fold 6 because of the apps that it has access to. And on top of all that, if you're somebody who doesn't care about working off of your tablet, this is a better tablet experience. The only difference is that the Z Fold 6 is a pretty good tablet experience in my opinion, even though the screen is smaller. The thing that makes the Z Fold 6 special is that it folds. It goes into your pocket, you know? Like, when you're done with it, you literally just fold it up and now it becomes your phone, and now it just goes into your pocket. The iPad, you can't just get rid of it like that. You gotta like intentionally put it somewhere. Like, for example, if I'm chilling on the couch, my daughter is walking around the house, you know, my 1-year-old daughter is gonna see this and probably touch it up dirty with their fingers. She's gonna pick it up and throw it. So I can't just like, you know, stop using it. I intentionally get up and put it somewhere safe where it won't get damaged. The phone, I can close it up, put it in my pocket very easy like that, or I can put it, you know, somewhere on the couch. My daughter is less likely to touch a small phone versus a big, beautiful, shiny tablet. And I'm saying this based on experience. Like, personally, she doesn't really touch my phone. If she gets my phone, she grabs it, picks it up and comes to me and it's like, Dada? Like, she thinks I forgot it or something like that. So yeah, that's just another scenario where, you know, you can get rid of your Z Fold 6 very easily. The iPad, you gotta intentionally make sure that it's safe because it doesn't fold, it's not pocketable, you know? And then yeah, the other thing is like, you know, are you using the iPad plus another phone, or do you want like one device that is your phone and your tablet at the same time? That is what you have to think about. And personally, if I didn't need to video edit and do creative things, then I would never use the iPad again. I would just use my Z Fold 6. But because I have to video edit, then I think the iPad has its purpose and use case. Even for somebody like me who has a Mac, who has a Windows PC, who has a phone that is a 2-in-1 device. I'm using the iPhone 15 Pro Max to film right now. The iPad is just so valuable in terms of like getting professional level work done on the go wherever you are. And it's just the small package for what it is. So, you know, it really comes down to what you value, what you need. I do think the Z Fold 6 is just super powerful. But like I said, if you don't need video editing specifically and maybe music production, then you can definitely live with the Z Fold 6. It can replace your tablet, your iPad, and your phone. As you saw with the different scenarios, coffee shop scenario, different ways that you can plug it in, even to your desktop setup with the external monitor and a real keyboard. You can use the S Pen Pro to get real art done if you're an artist. Obviously, you're gonna have a better time with the bigger screen in the iPad, but it's possible to get real professional work done with the Z Fold 6. So Z Fold 6 is like really good and versatile. It's up there, but for like professional work stuff, you're gonna have to find workarounds more than you would with the iPad, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think this is a really good comparison because, at least for me, it's a real question. Like, I am somebody who wants one device that can do everything, and the iPad is very close to that. The only thing is it doesn't fold up and become a phone and go in your pocket. This does that. This becomes a tablet and a phone, and you can connect it to an external monitor to become a computer. And you have so many different accessories. It works well with external mics, external SSDs, and the fact that it has all my files on it, you know, my watch is connected to it, it has my health metrics, it has literally everything I need all in one place, is really sick. So the iPad, I wish it folded up. If Apple made a folding phone that had like the same capabilities as the iPad Pro, like I love this device, bro. I love Samsung foldables, the Z Fold series. I think they're the best foldables on the market. But if Apple made a foldable phone that had the same power potential, the video editing ability, and then it has cameras like iPhones, I'm sorry, bro, I gotta switch. I think I would definitely switch to that device. And it's not because I like iOS, it's not because I like iPad OS. I don't really like the OSs that much, but in terms of the capabilities and the app selection, the things that they have access to, I would 100% switch, just for the fact that I can open my phone and confidently edit 4K video wherever I am. I can do that on the Z Fold 6, but not confidently because the optimization issues, the codec limitations, it doesn't work as well as using the iPad or an iPhone. So yeah, that's how I feel about these devices. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. But this is the unlikely comparison between the Z Fold 6 and the iPad Pro 11-inch with the M4 chip. Both 1TB devices, both beasts with their own styluses. And yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We out. Peace.